Reactions still pouring in after a jury found Umar Zameer not guilty in the 2021 death of a Toronto police officer.
I thought I and Ida made a wrong decision when we thought we should go to Canada. It's a better place for our kids. But I think today I see that Canada didn't let injustice to happen. So I thank Canada.
After a 5-week trial, Zameer was found not guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder and manslaughter caused by dangerous driving at Ontario's Superior Court Sunday. Detective Constable Jeffrey Northrup died July 2nd, 2021, after being struck by Zameer's car in an underground parking garage. Nader Hassan is Umar Zameer's defense lawyer. He is with us in studio this morning. You might have recognized him from some of that footage. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Ontario Superior Court Justice Anne Malloy apologized to Mr. Zameer for what he went through. How are Umar and his family doing this morning?
They're breathing a sigh of relief. This has been quite an ordeal for them over the last 3 years. They've been through a lot. They also feel awfully, horribly for what happened to poor Officer Northrup and his family. They will always feel that way. And to be clear, you know, there are no winners here. But no one would have been better off today had an innocent man been sent to jail for one of the most serious crimes on our books.
I'm going to read some statements from Constable Northrup's family in just a moment. But first, the trial focused on intent, of course. So it wasn't the fact whether or not the vehicle killed the officer, it was intent. Yeah. And whether Zameer knew what was happening or if he knew that Northrup and his partner were police officers. What arguments did your team present?
Well, the reality is they didn't know that they were police officers. And the scene, the context is important here. Mr. Zameer, his 8-month pregnant wife, Ida, and their little 2-year-old, they were leaving Canada Day celebrations late at night. They were parked at Nathan Phillips Square parking lot. Parking lot was practically empty. They were getting ready to go, and as they're getting ready to leave, the two officers in plain clothes, who didn't look like police officers, came up to them and, you know, quite frankly, aggressively started demanding that they stop. When Mr. Zameer tried to leave by driving forward, another group of police officers, this time in an unmarked dark van, pulled up and blocked their exit. So Mr. Zameer goes from thinking, okay, these people are trying to maybe rob us, maybe carjack us, to now there's a whole gang and they're going to do who knows what to us. So they were scared, as I think most people would be in that situation.
Toronto Police Chief Myron Demkew released a statement following that verdict. Yeah. It reads in part, while we respect the judicial process and appreciate the work of the 12 citizens who sat on a very difficult case, I share the feelings of our members who are hoping for a different outcome. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I quite frankly find it a little bit troubling that the police chief would say something like that.
Why?
Because Toronto Police has known the true version of this story from the beginning. The Canadian public didn't know the true version of these events back in 2021 when my client was first charged, but Toronto Police did, or they ought to have known. And they made some reckless, irresponsible statements in the beginning, knowing that they controlled the narrative. Now, the Canadian public saw this case for what it really is. And whereas back in 2021, we had people sending us hate mail, calling our client a terrorist, saying all kinds of awful things, now we get emails and offers of support from Canadians across the country saying, I feel so badly for that poor family. You know what? I would have done the same thing if I were in his shoes and fearful for my family.
That verdict just came out yesterday, so it hasn't even been a full, sort of 24 hours for all of the families and the people involved. And when speaking with the media after that verdict, you said you want this case to be a teachable moment for police and for Canadians. What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, horrific tragedies happen sometimes, and this was a horrific tragedy. I've been told that Officer Northrup was a good, honorable police officer, and I believe that. And I don't think we honor the fallen Canadian heroes like Officer Northrup by lying about what really happened. I think it was wrong for the Toronto Police to essentially lie about what really happened, to lie to Canadians, to lie to the family about what actually happened. I think police need to behave honorably and tell the truth in court, even when it's one of their own who has suffered a terrible, terrible tragedy. And I think we need to rethink how police conduct themselves and handle themselves when out in public, particularly in plainclothes, because it can be intimidating to Canadians who aren't expecting to be approached by police late at night when they've done nothing wrong. And for those police officers to not be in uniform, to be in plainclothes and not properly identify themselves, that can cause problems like it did here.
I wasn't obviously in the courtroom, but to be clear, the judge did not accuse Toronto police of lying.
The judge did not say that the Toronto police lied. I think that was patently obvious from the testimony of certain Toronto police officers. I want to be clear, there were police officers who gave testimony at this trial. They were truthful, they were honorable, they did their duty. There were certain police officers who got up on the stand, put their hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and then just lied.
I want to get your reaction just before we let you go. Constable Northrop's wife had this to say after that verdict again on Sunday. From day one, all I've wanted is accountability. We miss Jeffrey every day, and we continue with him in our hearts. What's your message to their family?
Well, they probably don't care what I say, but for what it's worth, we have been grieving Officer Northrop's loss from the beginning, just like the rest of Canada. I understand he was one of the really, really good ones, and we feel awful about what happened. I could tell you, the first time I met my client in custody, his first question wasn't, how can you get me out of here? How can you get me out of jail? I'm in custody. How do we get bail? His first question is, how's that family doing of the poor officer? I feel horribly for them. Mr. Zameer is not just an innocent person, he's a good person too. And Canadians should feel happy that he has his life back.
I want to thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.